Clocks are probably the earliest form of automation. You set a clock up, you wind it, and it runs for a week. Some clocks run for a month, some run for a year. But once it's wound, and if it's in good condition, then it's automatic. It just keeps on doing it. And one of the intriguing things is in bringing them back to life after they've been either wrecked by incompetent people or dropped or otherwise neglected and damaged. When I was 16, I had a high school science teacher who had a collection of watches, and he used to take them to a particular jewelry store in my hometown, Edinburgh in Scotland. And he found out they had an opening for an apprentice. So I went along and had an interview, and I ended up starting a 5-year apprenticeship. Eventually, I started my own business. I think it's the connection with the past. It's the connection with the fact that these antique clocks were all made by hand. And every one is different. Each one is unique. And I think that's what makes people really cherish them. We're located in a little village called Newfane in southern Vermont. We came here in 1964, having started the business in Waltham, Massachusetts. We decided that we just wanted to get away from the city. And with FedEx and UPS, we were never very far away from any metropolitan center. The basic philosophy of my philosophy anyway, and I think of anybody with any integrity, is to respect the work that was done by the original maker. There was a time when people thought, well, analog clocks and watches are going to go, become redundant or obsolete. But in actual fact, people value them even more now because they're a part of our history, part of our past. And there's an aesthetic to them that you just don't get with a quartz movement. They always traditionally have a landscape, an English cottage or something similar. And on the other side, between the moon faces, the seascape. This particular clock was made by Mulliken in Concord, Massachusetts. It's extremely well preserved and very, very traditional in its motif. A lot of the clocks that come into us have had parts removed for one reason or another, and the clock is no longer complete, although it may still run, but some of its other functions, such as the strike mechanism or the calendar mechanism, won't work. So our job is to bring it back to the condition that it was in when it was first made. And to that end, we make any parts that we need. First of all, to cut a wheel or a new gear, we have to determine the number of teeth required. And so that has to be determined in conjunction with the other teeth that this wheel is going to mesh with. So we've determined that this is going to be a 48-tooth wheel, and we dial that into the CNC controller, and it determines the number of teeth that will be cut. We have to be fully equipped to be able to make any part for any clock, because you can't buy spare parts for a 300-year-old clock. It was always traditional in Europe to train an apprentice, and then he would go on and become new blood in another clockmaker shop. And in this country, I revived that tradition, which had pretty much died off here. I set up a program based on the British program that I went through. So I trained as many as 7 apprentices. And I have to say the last one is my son, my youngest son, who's working with me now, and who's been with me for 11 years. And he has a natural talent. It must be in the genes, because he just took to it amazingly quickly. Working on these clocks, communing with the person who made the clock so many years ago and bringing them back to life, and actually also restoring them to their full value, because if they've been allowed to wear so badly that they need a lot of repair work, or if they've been butchered by other people, hobbyists or tinkerers, they can be devalued considerably. And our job is to bring them back to their full mechanical integrity. My favorite clocks, I'd have to say, are the ones that are the most complicated. Figures that perform through the dial, sometimes through an aperture, or sometimes at the top where you can have a rocking ship. The more challenging jobs like that are what really reward us for the hours of often drudgery, of just regular routine work. Every day there's a new challenge, and I still have to say, after all these years in the business, I get up with the same enthusiasm that I did when I was an apprentice, because there's always something to look forward to. Another interesting clock, another thing to restore, to bring back to life.